This episode of the Mosaic Life podcast is brought to you by the Mosaic Life Circle. You've probably heard me talk about it before, but for all of our new listeners and the ones who have been with us since the very beginning, our goal is to provide the very best content and value to you. And to make sure we do so, we want to make sure you know when we put out new interviews, new conversations, new talks, new meditations, all of the above. And the best way to find out about that is through our Circle email list. Head online to the mosaiclifepodcast.com, get signed up for the Circle. Not only will you be notified of brand new episode releases, but you will be in the know about contest announcements and merchandise deals. I promise you, those sweet Breathe About It t-shirts will be available soon. You can find all of that and more at themosaiclifepodcast.com. Hello, friends. Welcome to another episode of the Mosaic Life podcast. I am thrilled to be back with you. I hope everybody is having a wonderful July, staying cool wherever you are. This episode, I say it every week. I do. I swear I do. I'm so excited about this episode. And I know I say it every week because we keep getting introduced to these incredibly inspirational people who are doing things that I didn't even know, honestly, were possible or were feasible as a career. We are talking today with Dan Candell. Dan is a professional hypnotist, and he got started at an extremely young age, and he helps people. His whole thing, as you'll see in the title, he is the anxiety relief guy. And I will ask you rhetorically right now, whether in your car, you're listening at home, whatever, raise your hand if you deal with anxiety on a daily basis. I have to imagine the vast majority of people listening are raising their hands right now. It is I probably shouldn't use this word so loosely, but it's an epidemic. It is something that is a problem throughout our entire culture. And if you can find relief from that, I don't know why you wouldn't want to explore any means possible aside from substance abuse. Dan helps you do that in a very healthy manner. I thought I was going to talk about this on the episode, but it didn't come out. In college, I actually attended a hypnotist show, and I got on stage and I did the whole stick your tongue out and do crazy crap for a couple minutes while people laughed at me type thing. And then after the show, I thought to myself, I can do this. I can figure it out. So I had a buddy. He liked to partake in the marijuana every once in a while. So I'm like, you know what, man, let's try this. So I started trying hypnotism on him, and I actually got it to work. And it was a lot of fun just to kind of see how powerful and suggestible our minds can be. And, of course, I probably didn't use it for the best of reasons, but Dan does. Dan Candell is a multi-award-winning, board-certified hypnotist, author, and speaker. He's been doing hypnosis for more than half of his entire life. Like I mentioned, he got started when he was a kid. Now he travels the world with his hypnotic presentations and works with groups and individuals, teaching them how to release anxiety fast and helps them replace it with confidence and self-control. He is known around the world as the anxiety relief guy and can help you positively rewire your subconscious mind to live a more high-performing life. The world we live in right now, we are always in comparison mode. And I personally blame social media for that almost exclusively. And I know getting rid of it is a lot harder than we want it to be, and that's not always the best solution. And so if you have a way to mitigate the fear and the anxiety that you get from comparing yourself to others or dealing with stressors at work, dealing with interpersonal communication issues with people in the office, there is a wonderful way of doing that, and you are going to be better off for it. We talk with Dan for well over an hour about how people can live better lives just by conquering their own minds and realizing that what they're feeling is not permanent. It is something that can be changed, and it can be done in a very natural manner. So I've said enough. Please enjoy this amazing conversation with Dan Candell. Welcome to the Mosaic Life podcast.
Life is an art. Every moment a picture painted in time. The color, texture, lighting, all context. The Mosaic Life vision is to cast a warm glow on your masterpiece, highlighting the struggle while showcasing the culmination of years of hard work.
Join us for guided meditations, interviews with authors and leaders, and engaging conversation as we explore the depths of our consciousness. Welcome back to another episode of the Mosaic Life Podcast. Ernie, you with me, my friend? We're not face to face this time, but you're there, right?
I'm here. Yeah.
Beautiful.
Hear you loud and clear. I'm excited today, man.
I'm excited too. And of course, a huge welcome to Dan Candell. Dan, thank you so much for joining us today.
Hey, it's great to be on, and it's great to join the hustle with the both of you.
Well, I appreciate it. Before we jumped on, Dan came on via video, and he showed us this hustle mug, which is amazing. I love that. I've got to get one of those.
I listened to Matt Ward's podcast, and if you tell Matt you want one, he will send you one.
I
There
will
you go. Yeah.
absolutely tell him that. I will absolutely. So speaking of Matt, this is the second time in a row I've said, hey, we appreciate you coming on. We were connected with you via Matt. I mean, I guess that's just kind of what he does, isn't it?
Matt is like the god of creating connections with people. And which is funny because I wrote a book called The Hypnotic Connection, How to Persuade and Influence Anyone. But that's totally different than what Matt does. Matt is he's like a networking superhero. And he will just connect anyone and he even connected somebody one time to like the Patriots football team or the Red Sox or something like that. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, how do you have these connections? Like, I'm just nice to people.
He really
well,
is.
I'm not, so that,
Yeah, but you can hypnotize people, right? And just get them to do whatever you want. I'm sure that's probably the wrong way of putting that, but
I just hypnotize people to make them forget things like that. No, it's a lot of fun though. I've been a hypnotist since I was 13 years old. I was one of the world's youngest hypnotists, and and now I'm 33, so I can say I've been doing hypnosis for more than half of my life.
that's great.
And it works. I've never ever thought it would have blown into the career path that it has and opened up so many doors and opportunities. So in a way, that's how I make connections with people.
That's incredible.
It's so crazy, man. When I heard you say that you learned to hypnotize yourself in the 7th grade, and then now seeing you do it as a profession and helping people, it's insane to imagine. And back when you were in 7th grade, I highly doubt you were on YouTube finding out how to hypnotize yourself. Where did you even come across that in your life as a kid?
Yeah, because I don't think YouTube was even a thing when I was.
No way.
So what happened is when I was younger, I grew up and had very supportive parents always. And both of my parents, they say to me, Dan, you go on all these interviews and you tell everybody you had a rough upbringing. And they can give us some credit. I'm like, okay. I will say this. My parents are listening, which they probably will. They were fantastic parents. They were always super supportive of anything I wanted to do. With that said, I had to grow up really quick. There were some issues in my family with addiction and alcoholism. And so there were many times where my family was focused on those sort of things. So I had to focus on other things to keep me busy.
Yeah.
So hypnosis, I guess you could say, was like my anti-drug. But when you look at it, I was like 11, 12. I was never really that great of a student. My grades were suffering in school. I was depressed. I was anxious about a lot of things. I was questioning my own sexuality. So I was the typical teenage stuff. And I went on a vacation with my dad. And while we were on that vacation, I saw a hypnosis show. And the hypnotist, he hypnotized like 20 people on stage. And it seemed like the people on stage, it seemed like they became his puppets. And it was so fascinating. I'm like, this is so cool. So something weird had happened. For everything I saw that night, it's like I developed a photographic memory. And everything that I saw on stage, I remembered like word for word. So I'm like, well, this has never happened before. So I went home, I practiced it on my friends. It worked. And in fact, I remember one of my friends' mom, like I hypnotized my school friends in my mom's basement, and I turned them into Dolly Parton.
That's awesome.
And I sent them home like that.
No, shut up.
The phone calls that my mom got back from my friend's parents were like, "Your son made our kids psychotic," like, you know. So from there, my parents realized I had this interest, and they had bought me a book. It was Hypnosis for Beginners by William Hewitt, and in that book, it was all about like therapeutic hypnosis, and I wanted to more have fun with people.
Right.
I'm like, we'll read the book anyway. So I read the book cover to cover, and there's a section of the book called How to Hypnotize Yourself to Get Better Grades. So I practiced self-hypnosis every single night for about 3 weeks, and my grades went from like C's and D's all the way up to A's. I was feeling motivated. I was focusing better. I was feeling better about myself. I was getting more done. I went from being like an introverted kid to coming out of my shell and being like, "Yo, dude, what's up?" And I will never forget my teachers having conversations with my parents thinking like I was cheating. They had no idea how it was happening. And my parents were like, no, he's like learning how to hypnotize himself. And so then my teachers started asking me if I would do this with other kids.
Wow.
To help them. So I started doing that. Then I became professionally trained because one of the books I had read, I looked those people up online, the authors of the books, and my mom reached out to them, and it turned out they were having a hypnosis training in Boston, because I lived in Massachusetts at the time. And so we went to the hypnosis course. I learned stage hypnosis, and then I started performing all up and down the East Coast. My parents
at 14?
At 14.
Jeez.
My parents actually had to drive me to my shows because I wasn't old enough to drive yet.
Wow.
So I wasn't just doing like high schools and stuff like that and middle schools. I was performing for like bachelor and bachelorette parties.
Wow. Lucky you. That's awesome.
If you can imagine, like, I would have people request, like, what do you want to see your guests do? And there's this one bachelorette party I remember doing. I was like 15 years old. They're like, turn all of our friends into strippers. So I did. I'm like, okay. And from there, it grew. It was how I supported myself through college. It created a really nice life for myself and for my family. And now I go by the anxiety relief guy because I specialize in helping people break free from anxiety fast and overcome confidence. And I've coined myself, and other people have gotten to know me as like the out of the box hypnotist. So I'm not your everyday, ordinary, traditional hypnotist that's going to be like, focus on your breathing and relax your entire body. That's not my style. I use a more direct approach that gets results with people very quickly. And instead of seemingly taking control of other people, I teach people how to take control over their own feelings and emotions so they can logically stop any negative sabotaging patterns, such as procrastination, doubt, fear, overwhelm, nervousness, stress, anything that causes fatigue or clutter.
Right.
Wow.
So I'm curious if you can, I guess, as a primer, it sounds like you do a little bit of both, some stage, some clinical type hypnosis. I mean, when I go to the state fair here in Ohio, there's always, without a doubt, somebody on stage performing hypnosis. And can you, how big of a difference is what you practice between like the actually helping somebody quit smoking or, in your case, overcome anxiety versus, being on stage and hypnotizing upwards of 20 people at a time?
It is, I would say it's about 90% different.
Okay.
And not just the entertainment purpose, because there's two ways. There's believe it or not, there's many different forms and styles of hypnosis, but there are only two ways to actually hypnotize a person. And that is relaxation or fatigue of the nervous system. And that's where you'll hear a lot of people saying like, just relax your body, relax your mind. And but I have found that my typical client comes to me because they can't relax. And And if I said, close your eyes and relax, they'd look at me like I have 18 heads. So contrary to that, there's another method of hypnosis, which is shock or overload to the nervous system. And when I say shock, I don't mean like it doesn't hurt, but shock to the nervous system, it can just mean overwhelm or overload of the nervous system by either confusion, by surprise, by, like I said, like overload of the nervous system. So sometimes I'll say things where it sounds like I'm speaking in tongues, right, and it'll just confuse a person, and that confusion will send them into a hypnotic state. So I'll say things and just for anybody listening, this isn't going to put you into a trance, but it's going to show you how your conscious mind has lagged time and how your subconscious mind is like keeping up. So I'll say things to my clients, and when I'm giving presentations, I'll say things like, and the day that we're recording this is on a Tuesday. So I'll say things like, today is Tuesday, which is Wednesday's yesterday, Monday's tomorrow. And as you begin to think about that, you may begin to think about other things, maybe a color, such as the color orange. I wonder if there are other colors, though, because orange is not just color, it's also a fruit. I wonder if there are other fruits that are also colors as you begin to think about that. So your minds just tried to keep up. And we're like, what the heck is he said? Today is Tuesday, which is when, what? And then orange, like he jumped from the day of the week to a color. So what happens is your mind, like one part of your mind is trying to figure out what the heck I just said. Right. And the other part of your mind is becoming more open to my suggestions and the things that I'm saying. And it causes a state of confusion, which opens up a person to feel more receptive and sensitive to my suggestions, as long as they agree to it, though. That's the other thing, is they have to agree to being hypnotized and to following my instructions that I'm giving them. It's a process.
Blowing my mind, man. This is so cool. I could almost feel myself peeling away as I was like settling into you speaking fast and myself trying to keep up with it. I could start to feel myself, like my sense of awareness widening a bit. That was interesting, just in that short period.
Yeah, and that's what happens too. Is people will say, like, I didn't even know I could make a shift that quickly. And that's exactly what happens. It's all about teaching people how to harness their own receptive states. And I want to get back to the question, how is that different than stage hypnosis? And stage hypnosis, a person is aware of what they're doing. And in hypnosis, a person is always aware. We explain it differently on stage, and there's a lot more going on stage than there with multiple people. So there's a lot of factors at play. But on stage, hypnosis is essentially this. It's almost like an intoxicating feeling. And it's almost like you gave someone, or let's say you went to a party. And at this party, you drank a couple too many glasses of wine, right, and your inhibitions start to lower. And you're like, oh my gosh, someone's playing my favorite song. You get up on the coffee table at this person's house and you start singing and dancing on the coffee table like nobody's watching. And even if 100 people were, you don't care. And
been there.
Isn't that fascinating? Because that's exactly what we do with stage hypnosis. Yeah. We get people into that state where they know what they're doing. It's just like they don't care. Does that make sense?
It does. That's a great way of putting it. It's so much clearer now than, so I've been on that stage before and I've had that experience, and I couldn't even begin to tell you what was happening. So that explains it so much better than anything I've ever heard before.
Yeah, because the next day you wake up and you may have vague memories of what happened that night.
Right.
And that's exactly what hypnosis is like. People say, well, can hypnosis make me forget? No, it can't make you forget. However, think of when you're on stage, it's almost like watching a full vivid movie, but with your eyes closed. And you're not going to remember every single detail of that movie. The same thing is true when you're hypnotized. You're not going to have every vivid detail of everything that happens. You may have bits and pieces, and some people really remember nothing at all, and some people remember everything. So it really depends on how that person's mind works in accordance with the suggestions that are given by the hypnotist.
Yeah. And
This
so
is incredible.
it is.
Thank you.
Yeah. At what point did you go? I mean, it sounds like you were doing hypnosis to help yourself in the beginning, and then it became something fun that you could travel and make money with. At what point did you decide you were going to use this tool that you've learned to specifically work on people's, anxiety and their paradigms of themselves in the world?
Sure. So when I was a teenager, to be honest with you, I did not want to help people. I'm like, that sounds boring. It's just not who I am. I don't want to do that. And it just, to me, it was really, really boring. And I'm like, that it sounded too much like therapy to me. And when I was a teenager, I was going to see a therapist, and I'm like, I don't know if I want to listen to people's problems every day, all day, right?
Yeah, I can imagine being 14. You're just like, whoa, I have this power. Let's make funny shit happen.
Yeah, exactly. What it was like. That's exactly what it was like. But what ended up happening is when I was like 15, 16 years old, it started to morph. And my mentors and my teachers who were teaching me hypnosis, they said, you can use this to help a lot of people, but you don't have to see people one-on-one all the time. You can do groups. So when I was 15, when I was 15, I started doing group hypnosis sessions to help people lose weight, stop smoking, and reduce their stress. And the stories and feedback I was getting from people, like I remember this one newspaper article, attended one of my stop smoking seminars, and it was me in front of a room, and I was like 14 or 15, I was 15 years old. And I still have the newspaper article. I was wearing this like bright orange shirt with this suit that was way too big with an M&M tie, and not like Slim Shady M&M, but like the candy M&M. So I was like this 15-year-old little doofus, like little nerd that was giving smoking statistics to help people quit smoking. So I'd have on average like 30 to 50 people attend my seminars at a time. And the feedback I'd get from people, it's like, this kid who is the age of my grandson helped me quit smoking and saved my life. Or this guy helped me lose like 35 pounds in the matter of like, he hypnotized me for an hour. And so then I started going into people's homes, and I would do home hypnosis parties. Like think of like a Tupperware party, but instead of a Tupperware party, you're hypnotizing people.
Well, so, where I'm from, it's a tattoo artist comes in and everyone gets a tattoo.
Get out. Are you serious?
Sometimes.
Oh, I mean, that can lead to some pretty interesting conversations, right? But at the same time, though, keep in mind a 15-year-old making $500 in 1 hour. And that's what I was doing. So I would go into people's homes and I would say, okay, you have to have 10 people and it's $50 a person. And I'll go there for like an hour, hour and a half, and I'll just do my weight loss seminar. And I did that a couple of times a week. So I was making about $1,500 a week.
Nice.
Right.
What?
So as you can imagine, we had some pretty raging keggers. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, right. We got so much high C, man.
Dunkaroos who were big. No, but there I had to be really careful because I had to be very careful of like who my true friends were, because I would have kids that like, honestly, I was like the hypnotic cool guy. I was that kid that could hypnotize people, but it was also to some people is also weird. And but like I said, my parents always supported me. They no matter what was going on, they always supported my dreams. And when I was like when I was 22, as soon as I graduated college, I opened up my own office. And I started seeing people out of like a little one-room office. Yeah. And now I have a 1,500 square foot health and wellness center.
That's incredible.
Thank you. And it morphed to anxiety when I started specializing in anxiety, where I became known as the anxiety relief guy. I'd say about like 3 years ago, after I went through my own battles with severe anxiety and PTSD, and something that actually happened during one of my stage shows. And I had to resolve that in my own life. And then people started referring, like psychologists, psychiatrists, doctors started referring me all their patients that were tough nuts to crack.
Right.
And I started working with them, getting these amazing results with them in a matter of like 2 hours of working with them. And so the doctors and the psychologists and psychiatrists started calling me the anxiety relief guy. And it stuck. It's one of those things where it's like you fall into a niche, or like the niche chooses you. Right. You don't necessarily choose the niche. And it served me. And I absolutely love working with people, teaching them how to gain control of their emotions. And already this morning, I had one client before the interview. I have another 3 clients after this interview today. And it works. It works very well. So to the point where sometimes I'm surprised how well it works still.
Dan, that's amazing. And now is never a better time in this world to be the anxiety relief guy. Even, 10 years ago, as social media was taking grasp on our freaking race, and people realized how much anxiety is created when you compare yourself with others. I mean, I'm not bragging for you saying, oh, I'm making so much money helping these people, but these people are out there putting themselves in situations where, oh, this person has that, this person has that. I've got none of that. And I'm thinking personally, my own sister deals with that sort of thing. And just to be able to have some sort of relief, it's got to be so amazing. And it's got to be such a good feeling to be able to rid yourself of that.
It is. And what I love is when people are like, when people say to me, it's so weird. I woke up. So we had our session, and then the next day I woke up and I normally feel anxious, but people like test this out, and they say, I even did things that would normally make me feel anxious, and all those things that used to bother me just don't bother me anymore. It's almost like I'm in the land of I don't care.
Wow.
Now, with that said, I've carved an even deeper niche with working with athletes and business professionals who, just like you said, I wouldn't label myself as being anxious. And a lot of my clients who are like business professionals and entrepreneurs and salespeople, they don't identify as being anxious either, but they identify as either being overwhelmed or being stressed out, or they want to do better. And a lot of them will say, like, I feel fatigued a lot throughout the day, and it's hard for me to focus, and I'll go on social media all the time, and I'll avoid a lot of the work that I have to do. And they'll ask me, do I have anxiety? And I'm not a doctor or a psychologist, so I don't diagnose people with anxiety disorders. Yet here's what happens. Imagine for a moment your smartphone, like an iPhone. Now let's say your iPhone has a full charge, and then after at like 3:00, it loses its charge and the battery dies. And it's supposed to maintain a charge throughout the entire day. But you notice that your battery keeps dying, your phone keeps kind of lagging out. The reason why is because there's all those apps that are open in the background that you're not even aware of. So what you do, you open the apps, you close them all out, you delete them out, you delete some of them off your phone, then all of a sudden your phone starts working better. The same thing is true with us as human beings. The reason why a lot of people feel fatigued or overwhelmed, or a lot of people, why people lack focus, is because there are other things going on in the background in their mind that they're not even aware of. And what I do with hypnosis and with the work that I do with people, I help people go in and essentially close out all those programs that are running in their mind unknowingly that are wasting their energy. And it works. Just the methods, they're not just hypnotic methods that I'm using. They're, like I said, they're methods that teach people how to clear things from their mind. They're methods that are neurological principles. Everything that I'm using is backed by science that has done research and research studies coming back saying that these methods are effective to work. And what's even better is we have statistics where the methodologies that I use are 95% effective in 2 sessions over 60 sessions of psychotherapy.
That's incredible.
Wow.
So
Wow.
it's pretty amazing to see how this works, because we're getting to things on a subconscious level where other methodologies, like more traditional approaches, try and attack it from a conscious perspective, but these problems aren't conscious at all. They're subconscious problems. So because they're subconscious problems running in the subconscious mind, we need to use a subconscious solution or subconscious intervention.
Wow. So I don't necessarily intend to get too deep into the science of it unless it goes there, because I'm cool with that too. Especially because this can be taken at face value as some like magic show or something like that, when people hear hypnosis. But I'm curious, are you these apps in the background of our minds, would you say that this is like trauma of our life that we've gathered, that and then you go in and you uproot them somehow and evaporate them, or is it maybe it's something totally different?
No, you're 100% correct. For some people, it is trauma. And what I'll do, I'll send you, so you can put it in either the show notes or something. I'll send you what I call my anxiety iceberg.
Perfect.
And it's basically everything that's underneath the surface of people's anxiety or overwhelm. And it's everything that's running underneath the surface. And one of those is trauma, previous experiences. Another are, some people have like anxious habits, like they bite their nails or something like that. And it's interesting because it's very rare for a person to have anxious habits when they're not stressed out, or when they're not having these other things that are going on in the background. So it could be trauma. Trauma is one of those things that that many people experience, but a trauma doesn't necessarily have to be, I was sexually abused, or I was verbally assaulted, or my parents were douchebags. Like it doesn't have to be something severe like that. It could just be some other stuff that, like maybe someone had trust issues or something like that could be running in the background. And today, the client I just had today, this person owned, ironically enough, a tattoo parlor. And which is funny because like that's a symbol of things being like permanently brandished on your body. And this person said, I feel like a lot of the things I've experienced have just been permanently embedded in my mind like a tattoo. And I said, well, now with modern technology, even tattoos aren't permanent anymore. So yes, to answer your question, it could be trauma. There are many other things where people don't even realize some of the things that have happened to them. And a lot of times they'll say, I don't know why I'm anxious, or I don't know why I have these issues. I don't know why I have this program running in my mind, like controlling my life. For some people, it's very obvious. And for other people, it's not. And for those that it's not, we don't have to go searching for the issue. And I had a person who was referred to me by a therapist last week. This person had severe PTSD from witnessing a murder, and had severe PTSD and was diagnosed by a therapist. The therapist sent this person to me. And within like an hour and a half, we cleared it. And the person was like, wow, I feel really free from this. But I don't accept, oh, I feel free, or, oh, I feel good. I don't accept that. I look for quantifiable results, right? Because we want, I want proof as to what this change is going to do for people, or why they know, or how they know they're going to make a change. And for some people, it's I'll be more productive. I'll make more phone calls. For others, it's when I wake up in the morning, that won't be the first thing on my mind anymore. So everybody experiences a little bit. It's a unique experience for each person.
Yeah, thank you. I'm excited to see the anxiety iceberg and share that with our audience.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And it's something that I give to my clients to where I'm explaining the process to them, I'll actually, oops, sorry, I dropped something. When I am explaining the process to my clients, I'll give it to my clients so they can have like the illustration right out there in front of them, and it's very helpful for them to have this this graphic so they can kind of see for themselves and rate for themselves as well.
That's great.
So think for a moment though, because I always like to ask people this question when I'm doing interviews with people. If the two of you, Trey and Ernie, if the two of you could hypnotize people, or and it's not a power, it's like a learned skill, but let's say you had this skill, what do you feel you both would use it for? Because I'm always what other people would use it for.
Ernie, if you don't mind, the answer is just, it's on the tip of my tongue and I'd love to share.
Go for it.
Dan, you already said it. You use these two words specifically, do better. If you look at our press kit, that is within the first 2 or 3 sentences. We want to help inspire people to demand the best for themselves. I've personally realized through my own personal change that people won't change unless they want to. You can push them out the door and they'll still cling on to it until they realize that they need to change, until they need to be better. And so that's what I would use it for. I want people to experience the same joy that I have from working for myself, or just the relief from the anxiety that I used to have working for somebody else. Do better. That's my answer.
Awesome.
I don't want to follow that up, dude. That's solid, man. And there are a lot of what you just said, Trey, would cross over to what I think would be powerful. And most importantly for me, there's this sense of being able to love anything. So not just tolerating something, not just or not hating something in your life in particular, or these challenges that we face, but actually being able to bring love to every single day with the people that we're around, where we would typically get annoyed or frustrated or upset, or just be maybe even indifferent, to be able to just naturally have this sense of love that radiates out. And
I love those answers because they're not self-serving. Because I ask some people and they're like, "Oh, I'd hypnotize my girlfriend, or I'd hypnotize my boyfriend." Blank, blank, blank. Like insert fantasy there.
Right.
Like foot in mouth. But this is where you really get to find out a lot about a person and how caring they are, because both of you said of things that you would want other people to have, which is also, when I listened to your podcast and in a few episodes, it's very clear and very evident that you want other people to have these gifts, that you want to be able to be generous and giving to other people so that they can have very similar experiences to the ones that you two share, which I think is awesome.
Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, it's crazy. I guess it just depends. Maybe it depends where you come from, but I've had tremendous fear and depression in my life, and every single day that I was working on figuring out how to be more fulfilled, and to bring more awareness to what was actually happening for me, I was constantly wondering if I would ever get to a point where I was more at ease, like even just a little bit, but I could be sure that I would be capable of bringing fulfillment and ease and a little more peace into my life. And I've just, in the past year, really started to get to this place where I'm confidently feeling that I can handle things and that I can enjoy myself. And so without a doubt, I want to help people who doubt that still, or that have that same mentality of it's never actually going to change. I'm always going to be dealing or fighting with this thing, and I just have to get stronger and fight it more and more every single day. And so, yeah, the power of hypnosis, man, that would be an incredible way to take care of some of that.
Well, and a big part of that too is, you change nothing and nothing changes. And it's helping people feel comfortable with making these changes as well. This is why and I know this is going to be irrelevant 10 years from now, or maybe not, but with the pandemic that's happening now, and everything that's going on, because the time, like spoiler alert, time that we're recording this, we're still in the pandemic.
Yeah.
And the reason why a lot of people are feeling stuck or in a rut or held back is because people's two biggest fears are becoming actualized, and that is fear of the unknown and fear of loss of control. And the third is fear of change. And a lot of people who don't like change are having a really difficult time with the changes that are being made and the adjustments that they have to make.
Yeah.
And that's where it's getting comfortable enough with that change. And one of the ways we can do that is by making little adjustments every day. But sometimes those adjustments are so small that you won't really notice anything until like 6 weeks from now. And it's just like let's say you want to drop a few lbs and you're going to the gym or you're walking every day. You're not going to notice any results a week or 2 weeks from now, but maybe 6 or 8 weeks from now, you look back and you say, oh my gosh, I came a long way from where I was 8 weeks ago by making these little adjustments. And I think that's where people, and dealing with everything that's going on, it's reminding themselves that they are still in control of their own responses to everything that's going on. And we need to sometimes be reminded that we are in control. We are the driver of our own bus. We're the driver of our own destiny. We're the conductor of our own orchestra, whatever metaphor we want to use. I just worked with a hairstylist yesterday, and I said, you are the stylist of your own life. And reminding people that there are things that they can control in their life and in this world. And when they remind themselves of that, it's almost like a peace and a comfort. And that's where I see a lot of people transitioning, like when people are transitioning out of a job, like working for somebody, into business for themselves. My gosh, there's a lot of pressure and there's a lot of changes to be made. But I can't tell you how many people said, I had like a feeling of relief when I finally told good old Bob to go stick it to him. Yeah. And I'm like, I'm working for myself now, or whatever it was. And those are the people who have that empowering moment. Those are usually the people that fight stronger and faster through those anxious moments. And they're like, if I could overcome that, and if I could walk up to Bob and tell him to go screw himself, then surely I can do X, Y, Z for myself.
Absolutely.
It's empowering and inspiring to see other people succeed. And that's what I love about being on other people's podcasts as well, is because we all share success stories.
Yeah.
And I love seeing other people be like, hey, I made it, or I navigated my way through this challenge or something. So it all comes full circle. It really does.
Yeah.
It sounds like there's I don't know if you're not familiar with it, that's fine. But it sounds like there's a lot of parallels between at least the practice of hypnosis that you teach and Stoicism, and being in control of your own emotions and reacting only based on what you can control, not on what you can't control.
Right. Yeah. Stoicism is something I actually just was turned on to a couple of years ago, where I was making a membership of groups of people that wanted to make changes in their lives. And I was putting together a membership program. And, when you get into marketing some of your own programs, you become aware of other programs that people have out there that provide the same results that yours does.
Yeah.
And so I became privy of, I believe it's the Daily Stoic or something.
Yeah. Yep, absolutely. That's Ryan Holiday's newsletter and book.
Yes. And I'm going through some of it. I'm like, there's a lot of congruencies here.
Yeah.
And even though the methodologies might be different, how you achieve the result might be different, the result is very similar. And it all boils down to controlling what you can and letting go of what you cannot control.
Yeah.
And that's the thick of it, but there's a lot more steps to that. And then there's also buying into that belief system as well. Because you get someone who's like my dad, who's like a strong-headed cactus. He's like very bristly on the outside and very like warm and fuzzy on the inside. And one of the things that I hear a lot of people in my family saying is, it's just the way I am. It's just the way I am. It's just the way I was raised. And I'm like, if you believe that, we need to talk.
Yeah.
But you probably see too that people in our own family and like to my family, I'm just Dan. To your family, you're always just Ernie. You're always just Trey.
Right.
And which you don't want to be that person who walks on water for all those people. But those are the ones that sometimes do bring us down to earth. And it's a very humbling moment where you can go and you change a million people's lives one day, and you come home and then you're just Dan, take out the truck, you know?
Yeah.
Dan, if you haven't read, going back to the Stoic conversation for a moment, if you haven't read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius, I would highly recommend it. It's a very distilled book based on, the philosophy.
Yeah, absolutely. I have, when I do my morning workouts, I have like Audible playing in the background, or when I'm chilling out at night, I do read books. So that one, I'm definitely going to add that one to my list, because I always like to learn different perspectives of how to help people and other ways to add to what I'm doing. And a big part of creating innovative techniques is I like to find techniques from other disciplines that have very little to do with hypnosis and add a hypnotic undertone to them. And when I teach and when I train other hypnotists, there was how did you come up with this, or how did you develop this technique? I said, well, it's actually a technique from either Stoicism or a principle from CBT, cognitive behavioral, or DBT or something like that, and or life coaching, like even a life coaching exercise. And we take these, we weed out the therapy, because what we're doing is not therapy, and we replace the therapy with some sort of hypnotic undertone, which makes it stick in the person's subconscious mind a lot easier. And that's how we get results with people. We do things differently with them than they've done before.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So I do have a question. I'm curious, when we talk about apps in your mind and, closing those down, I know there's a lot of great research, and I'm not privy to most of it, but in regard to using psychotropic drugs to help, relieve some pressures from post-traumatic stress disorder, like either psilocybin or, other elements. Have you ever worked in a clinical environment where you're pairing hypnosis with any sort of drug? I use the word drug loosely, but I mean, not cocaine or pot, but, actual like LSD or psilocybin or mushroom, what have you?
It's so funny you asked this, because I just had this conversation with a good friend. We went out to dinner a couple of nights ago, and he's very scientific, and he says, I'm always looking for research of how this works. He said, because Dan, I know what you do, I just don't get it. And so he was talking to me about this and about using these different psychotropic methodologies for anxiety and treating PTSD. I have not personally seen a person utilize that. But after he said this the other night, I went and I did some research on it, and the research comes back, because the one question I had is, do you need to do it permanently, or is it a short-term thing? And I guess they give it to people in dosages, and then they like taper them off the dosage, but it helps them dissociate from post-traumatic stress or from anxiety disorders. And there's a category of people that I cannot and should not work with. And I feel like the clinical trials and studies that are being done on those people, those are people I wouldn't normally work with in my practice, because there are some people, and I'm like, you know what, you're a little bit beyond my scope of practice now. And I will recommend people go seek out another treatment before they come to see me. I have not seen people yet using hypnosis with the when my friend and I were talking about it the other day, we call it shrooms.
Yeah.
That was how
That's what we called it in college, and now we're more educated, so we say psilocybin. Like,
and so I haven't seen people doing research with hypnosis in that, but I have seen people, and I do know people who do hypnosis with cannabis, and they'll have they'll have a person do an edible, and I don't do this. I don't want to rely on substances to induce a state of hypnosis in a person, but I do know several colleagues who have used marijuana or CBD in their hypnotic processes, and they've actually gotten great results, specifically in working with pain and pain reduction, and working with anxiety as well. So those two things I've seen. Have you seen any new research come out about the shrooms? I'm blanking now on what
psilocybin.
I only brought it up because I'm a big fan of Tim Ferriss, and I know he's provided some financial investments. I think it's Johns Hopkins that is doing a lot of it's either psilocybin research or other stronger elements, but he's heavily invested in that. So, if you ever end up on his podcast and you want to make that referral for us, that'd be fantastic.
Absolutely. I'll definitely open that. That to me would be like, just like Matt nerds out with the Patriots, and like football means relatively nil to me. But going on Tim Ferriss's podcast is that's what really excites me.
Yes, nice. Yeah. Hey, man, you mentioned pain management, and something that keeps coming up is this connection between trauma and in the mind and how it shows up and manifests itself in the body. And I'm just curious, if you have like somebody come through, let's say, Susie comes through and she has anxiety, and you work with her for a certain amount of sessions, and then she calls you back 3 months later and said, since we had those sessions, not only do I not have anxiety, but my shoulders don't hurt anymore like they used to.
It happens all the time. And the reason why is because a lot of the pain, and one of the first things, if a person says I have pain, first and foremost, I always need a doctor's note to work with anybody that has any type of pain condition. But anxiety, or anytime anybody has a medical condition, I need a doctor's note. But anxiety and stress has been linked to psychosomatic pain conditions such as fibromyalgia, other chronic symptoms such as irritable bowel syndrome. Anxiety has been, and colitis, anxiety has been connected to aggravate those. And sometimes it's rare for a person to come to me specifically for that. Like, people usually don't come to me and say, can you please make me stop shitting my pants? But it's usually, I have a lot of anxiety around this. Can you help me with that? And as a result of working on the emotions behind it, because I do believe that every physical sensation has an emotional driver behind it. And when we take care of the emotion that's driving the physical symptom or driving the physical discomfort, then the actual physical discomfort goes away or feels much better. And sometimes it's just by relaxing the mind and teaching a person how to do that. And like I said, even though I don't always use the traditional relaxation approach, when I'm on stage, I do. And I've had people that have been hypnotized in an hour stage show by me, and they'll say things like, Dan, I have bone cancer, and I was living in constant pain and aches. And that hour of relief carried over for 10 days, and spend 10 days, and I still do not feel the effects of the bone cancer.
Oh my God, dude.
That, and in no way am I saying that I can cure cancer or cure any ailments. I'm not saying that. What I am saying, though, is by mentally taking a break.
Yeah.
And by pulling your mind out of the crap that you've been wading through has so many positive carryover effects. And a carryover effect, I explain to my clients, when you work on one thing, just one thing, it often gets carried over to other areas in your life, like relationship. Let's say you're having a tumultuous relationship. You work on that, or you work on one component of that. All of a sudden, other areas of your life start to improve as well, because now you're feeling better about yourself. When you feel better about yourself, it's easier for you to feel better about other people. When you feel better about other people, it's easier for them to feel better about you. And in turn, you feel better about yourself. So that one little adjustment, or let's say you learn how to manage your emotions, or you learn emotional intelligence, you learn resiliency, you learn how to bounce back. All of a sudden, so many other positive effects start to become carried over in your life, and those can be effects from pain. One small tangent: if you do suffer from any pain or any discomfort, the first thing to do is to become aware of how you're describing it and what you're telling yourself. We're so used to a pain modality or like the pain scale. How much does this hurt on a scale of 1 to 10?
Right.
And we're so conditioned in the American society that pain is a bad thing. But when you go to other countries, pain is a rite of passage, and pain becomes a good thing. So what I teach people to do is reframe the pain that they're experiencing, whether it be physical or emotional pain. And then I teach them how to change the wording. So instead of saying pain, the first thing I say when my clients come in is, okay, we're going to get one thing straight. This is the last time we're going to refer to this as pain. We're now going to call it comfort versus discomfort. So you're either comfortable or you're uncomfortable. And right there, that stops the pattern. And I'm all about teaching people how to stop the destructive pattern. And by sometimes changing one word, it can reframe a person's entire belief system about something. So one of the other things I'll have people do with again, either physical or mental emotional pain, I'll say, give it a color. Because studies have been done when we give feelings physical attributes or characteristics, we feel more in control over it, and it starts to chunk it down differently. So in other words, let's say a person is feeling anxious. I'll say, okay, if you could give that anxiety a color, what color would you give it? And they might say, I like red. And for some reason, a lot of people say anxiety or pain or discomfort is red, or like a bright color like that. I'll say, okay, and how would you rather feel instead? And they're not used to being asked that question, especially if they've been through a lot of therapy. They're not used to be asked the question right off the bat, how do you want to feel instead? And I'll help them search for those answers. So they'll either say, at first, they'll say, well, I don't want to feel anxious. I want to feel normal. So let me ask you a question. I have a freaking magic wand that I can wave and help you feel any other way. And you choose normal? Yeah. and they'll have that response. They'll like chuckle a little bit, which starts to break away the pattern. I'll say, as you're laughing, now tell me how you'd rather feel instead. And then they'll say, I'd rather feel like comfortable and confident and resilient and strong. Perfect. If you could give this feeling a color of how you want to feel instead, what color would it be? And many times it's like blue. So I'll have them change the uncomfortable feeling to a comfortable feeling, and I'll have them detail it as if they were describing they're giving it physical characteristics, so like characteristics like color, shape, and size, and texture, consistency. You can go into all these different, what we call submodalities, and you have the person describe it as if it's right out there in front of them and change it. And when they start to change it and they describe it differently, all of a sudden a shift happens and they start to feel more in control. And when they feel more in control, then we go on to a tangent. And I say, when you're feeling this way, what's it like? And what are you doing? And how are you responding? And now see yourself looking at that person that used to make you feel, ugh, and now what's different? So I'm asking them more resource questions. And this is like a hypnotic induction in and of itself. It hypnotizes a person conversationally. So those are some things that your listeners can actually do if they're ever feeling uncomfortable, or if they're ever feeling anxious, or if they're feeling any discomfort, whether it be emotional or physical discomfort. Give it a color, label it, become aware of it, and give it a color. What color would this feeling be? And what color would feel better? How would you rather feel instead? And what color would feel better? And then you just close your eyes for about 60 seconds and imagine that really good feeling, good color goes in throughout your mind and body, and it looks for the crappy color, and it just surrounds it and it replaces it. And you open up your eyes, and it's like this cool meditative thing where you're like, oh my gosh, I shifted that in 60 seconds, where that pain or that panic or that discomfort would have normally controlled a person for hours, if not the entire day. So there's a little bounce back technique that you both and also your listeners can use as well. And we call it hypnotic changing submodalities.
That's incredible. And it goes to prove how strong the mind is. And, if we are able to take control of it, what we're capable of accomplishing. Dan, I think it was your TED talk, correct me if I'm wrong, but where you interlocked your fingers and then you brought your index fingers apart and then you, with your mind, brought them together. That was your exercise, correct?
Yes, that's one of the exercises. Yes.
That's it. I highly encourage you check out Dan's TED talk, and I will link to, actually I'll embed it in the show notes on the website.
And that TED talk, if I can for a moment, that TED talk, it is now across different channels, because when you do a TED talk, other channels will take snippets or copies of it and they'll post it on their channel. Across YouTube has now gotten over 10 million views.
Wow.
Channels on YouTube. Wow. And I get emails every day with people saying how much that one 10-minute TED talk changed their life, which to me was such an elementary technique, which is essentially, it boils down to this. When you go to sleep at night, you go into a receptive state, imagine or picture how you want to be, float into it, and associate into it. And you can program your mind tonight for how you want to be tomorrow. And that's basically the thick of it. And I get a lot of criticism as, oh, that's a Napoleon Hill technique. That's this technique. Blah, blah, blah. But keep in mind, I had to make it so sickly simple. And I'm explaining the science of it too. So when you fall asleep at night, your subconscious mind, which is a part of your mind that stores every single thing you've ever heard, seen, felt, and experienced, learned, read, spelled, and tasted, and blah, blah, blah. So explaining why it works. And then you're right. I did we call it the Comstock test, or the finger magnets, where I have you imagine that there are magnets on your two fingertips. They touch. And people will say, they'll argue, and you'll see some of these comments on the TED Talk. They'll say, my fingers touched, but they normally do that anyway. and that's a parlor trick. And my response to that is, okay, resist against it. And they can. And that's the whole point behind this. I don't use this to say, boom, you're hypnotized. Mm-hmm. I use this to say, boom, you just allowed your mind to go into a state of receptivity where you imagined something that became your reality. Because if you wanted to keep your fingers apart, you could. It's using the power of your imagination to evoke a positive and sometimes natural physical response. And that's what it's all about. So that TED Talk, I asked myself, would I change anything about it? And there's a big part of me that's like, I would do it differently. But there's another part of me that says I wouldn't change a thing, because that TED Talk has it has ignited my career in a really powerful way.
That's amazing.
Thank you. And if I did it differently, I honestly don't think it would have gotten the traction that it did. And to the point where everything that happened behind it was just so serendipitous, where I didn't even get a chance to name my own TED Talk. They named it. And I think it's the name of that TED Talk that made it go viral. The other thing the only thing I would have changed is I wouldn't have worn what I wore. Because in it, I look like a certain political figure that we won't really get into. But,
Sure.
but
Well, at least you weren't wearing an orange shirt and an Eminem tie. You know, it could have been much different.
call back from like an hour ago. That's a good one. Good memory. But yeah, there's these things we ask ourselves, would we change them? But if we did, we wouldn't have gotten the opportunity that we did. So now I'm putting it out there that I want to do another TED Talk, and I want to do it differently. So that's what I'd rather do. Yeah.
That's great.
This whole conversation is blowing my mind in general. We've had coaches on here, we've had speakers, and there are so many avenues from which we can talk about how to make personal change, effective, permanent personal change. And your perspective and the way that you explain it alone, aside from this being a conversation on hypnosis, your perspective alone has a powerful, sense. The way you speak about it is just, it lands differently than some of the other ways I've heard some of these same things. On top of that, I'm like, whoa, because most people, let's say a coach or a speaker, they're speaking these things, and you just hope that the box is open and that some of it makes it into somebody's head. But you have this superpower, I'll say, for lack of a better word, this skill where you can actually open the box and then input all of this stuff. And I'm just like, man, what a powerful way to impact people's lives.
I love that you said that, because I notice now that, so I get a lot of business coaches and life coaches who they either take my training or they will have me do programs for their people, or they'll send me people, because the business coach will give you the strategy. But if you're not feeling good about the strategy, or if you doubt yourself, that's gonna be a roadblock. Mm-hmm. So business coaches and even life coaches will actually hire me to do a group program with their entire group, or record something to be a part of their program. So that way the strategy is actually sticking. And like you said, it's all about making what they're saying stick with the person. And this is that little extra icing on the cake that allows messages to stick. And in fact, I think his name is Scott Olford, who I see like a lot of Facebook ads for, and it's like a lot of brand building and everything. He actually recruited a hypnotist whom I know very well to work with his program, because he realized that, you can work with a group of 10,000 people, but if those 10,000 people, they want to make the change, they want to start putting themselves out there. But if they doubt themselves, or if they're afraid of being judged by other people when they put out YouTube videos and content, that's going to stop them from doing it. So he brought in a hypnotist, where the hypnotist will help people navigate their way through that doubt or that fear of judgment that they have. So that way, now they're feeling not just motivated to put content out there, but they're feeling it on a deeper level of passion, and they feel like it's their purpose to do that. So I hear what you're saying and echo it, that a lot of times, people can talk about the strategy, but there are some subconscious things that need to be in alignment in order for people to take action on the strategy.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Thank you, man. This is crazy. This is so good.
Yeah, it is. Wow. I mean, we're, already well over an hour. So Dan, I do want to be respectful of your time. There's a whole lot more I want to ask you about, but we'll have to say that for next time we have you on, because I want to talk to you again. But I do want to ask. It's one of my favorite things to ask, and been a big influence on my life over the last year. If you had to name one book that has just changed your life so much that you credit it every single day for being that life changing factor, would you be able to name that book, and what would it be, and why did it change your life?
So it would be The Big Leap, and it's by Gay
Hendricks.
Yes, yep, Gay Hendricks, and here's why. When I read that book, I was just starting to make some positive changes in my life with like exercising and getting on a healthy track, because a year ago, next week, my doctor called me and told me that they thought I had leukemia, and that was talk about fear. That was one of the hardest things that I had to go through. And around that time was when I started listening to the book, The Big Leap. And there were just some passages in there that I remember that just changed my perspective. And it was one of those times, it's like it changed my perspective, my belief system within the snap of a finger. And one of the things that really resonated with me is values. And he talks about how he got this opportunity to go and do a training for this company. And he said, yes, he agreed to do it. And then he started to have some reservations about it. And he said he reached back out to this company after ruminating over it for quite a while. And he reached back out to them and said, you know what? I don't think I'm going to do this anymore because it's, and I'm paraphrasing here, but essentially it's not in line with my values, and I need to be true to myself and true to my values. And instead of that company coming back and saying, you're this, you're that, how dare you? They said, we really respect your honesty and your integrity, and we want to work with you in a way that's going to make this work for you. And that right there resonated with me, because there's something that I say at the end of every video I shoot, every interview I do, every show and presentation I have, and every client I have, and I'll say that in a little bit, but it's three very powerful things that I say to people, and which really does change people's lives. Like that changed my life, and part of it has something to do with that. And that whole book goes in line with my belief system of we can change quickly. And people say, how do we know we can change quickly? And it's all perspective. And I'll give this a 30-second version of something that's usually expanded out a little bit longer. But Trey and Ernie, if you were both hiking together in the woods, and you come up on this bend in the trail, and all of a sudden you see in the middle of the trail this thing that looks like a rattlesnake, and you swear to God the thing moved and the thing is making a sound. You both go into retreat mode a little bit. You both recoil. You're like, whoa, hold on. That can kill people,
Yeah.
But then what happens is, Ernie or Trey, one of you looks at it a little bit differently, and you realize, dude, it's not a snake, it's just a stick. It didn't move. Your entire reality changed just like that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Something that seemed so threatening to you for 10 seconds or a minute, and if you had turned your back on that, it always would have been threatening. That thing always would have been threatening to you. But you changed your perspective of it, and just like that, a thing that you perceived to be threatening and dangerous instantly turned into something that was simple, non-threatening, and safe. And your mind can change just as quickly when we use the right modality. And that book is one of those things. I think I read it at the right time in the right place in my life where it really made a positive, profound shift.
Yeah, I don't know if you could possibly read that book at a wrong time, or at least my experience was the same thing. It just, as much as you can dive into personal development the way that he just brings this whole different perspective on our upper, what does he call it? The upper something.
Upper limits.
Upper limits. Yes. The way he talks about it, man, it's so profound.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Great, man. And so if people are listening to this and they are hooked and they want to, let's say we have some people that want to like dip their toes, and then we have some people who are ready to dive headfirst into this. How can they get involved with you?
Absolutely. So best place to go is to start at dancandell.com. dancandell.com. That's DANCANDELL. Think of soda can and Dell computer, put them together, dancandell.com. And I have things that you can dip your toes in that are completely for free, that explain how I work with you. It gives you a little taste of it as well. You can go on my YouTube channel. I have hypnotic videos on there that hypnotize you for free and more of a relaxation approach. I have coaching videos up there for subconscious coaching. So I do a lot of free stuff so people can get a little bit of a result before they start working with me. I then have a couple of books that you can also find on that website. I have some online virtual programs that are self-paced programs, and then all the way to working with me either one-on-one or in a small group online. And all the work that I do with people is usually over Zoom, unless you live in Massachusetts or New England, and then sometimes I can work with you in person in my clinic. But start there, dancandell.com. I'm always posting new things. I'm always shifting what I give and what I offer to people. I also have a podcast, The Anxiety Relief Revolution, which you can also get there from going on dancandell.com as well. So that's a good place to start. And also, friend me on social media or on my fan page. You poke me, I'll poke you. Then we won't talk for a week.
And earlier, man, you mentioned your own 1,500 square foot wellness center I believe in Boston. What's that called?
Yeah, so that is the Candell Center of Transformation.
Oh, hell yeah, dude.
I actually have my office is there. I have like a group room where if I'm doing in-person trainings, we do them there. I have 2 therapists and hypnotists who also work for me. We have a massage therapist in there. We have a grief counseling center in there. Get this is heavy. People who have lost children from fetal to age 12. And that is some heavy shit.
Yeah.
And so they're in there, and we also have like an energy healer in there as well. And I'm so thankful because we have created, and I say we because it wasn't just me, but we have created this amazing community, and we are like a tight-knit family of people. And throughout the pandemic, we've continued supporting one another, sending one another messages, and making sure that everybody's kind of in this together. And this is a place that you can go where people walk in, they say, we just walking in here gave us a sense of peace and comfort, just the way it's decorated and everything like that. So that's in Northborough, Massachusetts. So it's about 40 minutes west of Boston.
Hey, Ernie, let's go to Massachusetts, man.
Yeah, dude, I'm already planning.
Well,
coffee, I'll hypnotize you. You guys can hypnotize me. We'll call it a day.
That's perfect. That sounds amazing. Dan, you mentioned that you've got your own unique closing, and I did see it in, I think, one of your videos. And so I'm going to let you bring this to a close because I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was moving. So again, thank you so much for doing this with us.
Yeah,
I truly appreciate it. And I look forward to talking with you again. But, from here on out, I leave it to you.
Absolutely. Ernie, Trey, I really appreciate both of you and thank you for having me on. And to your listeners, when you do these 3 things, you can truly live a life of purpose, a life of peace, and a life of prosperity, and evoke the best possible emotions and feelings and sensations to do it. And these 3 things are this: be well, do good, and be true to who you are.
One more time, a huge thank you to Dan Candell for joining us on the podcast. If you haven't already, check out dancandell.com. Check out his YouTube channel, his podcast, and especially his TED Talk, which he mentioned in the podcast. All of that will be linked in the show notes. It will also be on the episode page at the mosaiclifepodcast.com. We'll have the TED Talk embedded below the notes. Thank you all again so much for joining us, whether this is your first time or your 46th time. We truly appreciate it, and we would love it if you would share your feedback with us. Either email us at onemosaiclife@gmail.com, or if you're so inclined, we would be eternally grateful if you leave us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. That helps others find out about us, it helps us grow, and it helps us get more and more inspirational guests. Last but not least, please follow us on Instagram at One Mosaic Life. And then, of course, we also have our Facebook page now. Just search for the Mosaic Life Podcast, and there we will be. If you would like to stay up to date about brand new episode releases or other deals like contest announcements, as well as merchandise deals, when those sweet Breathe About It t-shirts hit the shelves shortly, I promise you, sign up for the Mosaic Life Circle at themosaiclifepodcast.com today, and you will always be in the know. Thank you again so much. We will be back soon. Until then, take care, do better, and be well.